Hey there, welcome to another episode of Cooking with Violet Vixen. Tonight we are cooking eggplants with mozzarella and Parmesan. My recipe actually calls them an aubergine, which is what they call them outside of Australia. This is what we need. So it's basically going to look like a lasagna with you using the eggplant as your lasagna sheet. Come on in, I'll show you what we need. So first of all, you're going to need your oven on 200. You will need a really large dish like what you would cook for lasagna, use for lasagna, a saucepan and a couple of baking trays for the eggplant. Even though they're called aubergines in this recipe, I am going to refer to them as an eggplant, and I do apologise. This is just for my Australian peoples. I will call them that. You will also need a brush and a stirring stick. And ingredients are as follows. Cooking spray, you need that to spray everything. 3 eggplants, thinly slice them. Olive oil to brush. 300 grams of buffalo mozzarella slice. Now, I just brought the mozzarella ball from Aldi and sliced it. 115 grams of Parmesan cheese grated. That is that one. 3 tablespoons of dried breadcrumbs. 1 tablespoon of butter. I had that somewhere. It's somewhere. I really did have it. I don't know where I've put it. Anyway, sprigs of fresh flat leaf parsley. That's optional for the top. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 4 shallots finely chopped. 2 garlic cloves finely chopped. 400-gram can of chopped tomatoes. Excuse me. A teaspoon of sugar. Salt and pepper. And 8 fresh basil leaves chopped or shredded. So those ones there. Alright, so let's kick into it. Let's go. So we're going to get our multitasking hats on because first of all we are going to arrange the eggplant, which I've just got in water because I can't remember if it goes brown. It actually hasn't gone brown. You need to arrange it in layers, or not layers, like keep it flat, but you're going to need about 400 trays to do this. So I'm just going to sort of overlap them slightly. We are going to brush these with oil and bake them for 15 to 20 minutes or until tender but not collapsing. Now, collapsing obviously is when they're starting to get soft. So I'm just going to overlap them. And I'm just going to drizzle the olive oil over them and then use that brush that I told you about at the beginning. Because literally we are going to need thousands of sheets, baking trays and whatever otherwise. It's basically just to soften them anyway so that when we go to cook with them, they're not as firm. Yeah, even if you had like huge baking trays, you're going to need a few baking trays. So just sort of try and overlap them, but make sure that they're not right on top of each other, if that makes sense. Like sort of crisscross them. Okay. So So once we get these in the oven, we're going to pop our timer on. I'm going to pop my timer on for 20 minutes because there's so many of them. I can't see them being less than 20 minutes. All right. So just a drizzle of olive oil over the top. You can even use spray, I guess. Now this is not the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. This is just other olive oil. All right. Gotta be sparing with that. It's very expensive. Okay. I'm gonna pop these in the oven and I'll be back. Okay, while that's going on, this is our multitasking. 2 tablespoons of olive oil in our saucepan. Crank it to high heat. And in go those shallots. Now I've had my shallots in the freezer, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We're cooking them. We're not eating them raw. So in they go. Give them a bit of a stir for a few moments. Once they're in, we are going to add our tomato. I'm going to add the garlic and then the tomato, I'm sorry. I knew that. So the garlic I've just sliced up. I haven't used my garlic crusher. So a few moments. Because they've been in the freezer, I'm just going to chuck the garlic straight in now. With my sauce, I'm going to let it simmer a bit longer, but we really only need to do it for about 10 minutes. So the whole idea is that the eggplant and the sauce are going to be done at the same time. So start and open your tin of tomatoes. We're going to put those straight in. So what I like to do is deglaze the tin, just a little bit of hot water in there, and pop that in. So literally about a quarter of a tin. Swirl it around and in that goes. So while that's bubbling, we're going to try and get that to reduce down a little bit. All right. I just read my recipe. It was a tin of not chopped tomatoes, a tin of canned tomatoes. I just automatically always use chopped tomatoes. Hey, it actually told me to put the can of tomatoes in and then chop them up. I've just saved myself 30 seconds, if that. Okay, in goes that sugar. The sugar sort of helps balance out that soury taste. If you're wondering why you put sugar in with tomatoes, like a lot of pastas will get you to put a little bit of sugar in. Just balances it out. As much pepper as you want. Same deal with the salt. As much as you want. We're going to bring this to the boil. We want to simmer it for 10 minutes, which we've got 15 minutes on the clock anyway for the eggplant. So I just leave it simmer for the same amount of time. Once our buzzer goes off, we're literally going to be ready to assemble this and get it ready for the oven. Okay, so our buzzer's gone off. I've turned the sauce off a little bit earlier because it was getting too cooked, if that makes sense. I'm going to grab the eggplant out now. That looks like that. That's fine. So we're going to get both trays out. And we're going to go over and we're going to make our lasagna type thing. All right, let's go. The last part of our sauce is to add our basil leaves. So just quite simply put them in and give it a stir. All right. Now our eggplant's going to be really hot, so I'm not just going to carry the tray straight over. So basically we are arranging half of the slices on the bottom. So let's just go with one tray and then one tray, because sort of kind of done it that way. All right, now they will be hot. So use tongs unless you've got fingers like mine that are sort of used to touching hot things. Try not to burn myself in the kitchen. No, I am going to use tongs. They are hotter on the bottom. All right. Now, the other tongs that weren't very good are still in my dishwashing rack, I think. So we're just going to layer these. So if you sort of give them a bit of a shake, they're a little bit pliable, a little bit soft. That's what we want. And that was the idea of cutting them thinly. All right, I'm going to leave it at that because that's a bit full. Okay, let's bring our saucepan over. So our next step is we're going to cover with half of the mozzarella. All right, so half of the mozzarella over the top. Sometimes I've got to read the recipe a couple of times because it doesn't make 100% sense. Half of the tomato sauce over the top. It doesn't look like much sauce at all. It'll find its happy spot. And then half the Parmesan. We got a bit of basil in there. It can go in there. All good. All right, more Parmesan. The thing with the sauce is it always finds its happy spot anyway. All right, let me move that out of the way so you can see what's going on. All right, bring over the rest of the eggplant. The tray should be cool enough now for me to touch them, hopefully. Not the trays, the eggplant. So I'm just going to put all the rest on the top. So if you've made lasagna before, you can see why I'm saying this is like lasagna, because it literally sort of kind of is. We've got your pasta sauce and you've got your cheese, and the eggplant acts as a lasagna sheet. All right. Now I did ask for, I think I asked for big eggplant. I can't really remember. Eggplant are genuinely always pretty big anyway. So I sort of should have put more on the bottom, but don't let that stress you too much. So as I say, they all will eventually find their happy spot. But yeah, maybe if you get big eggplants, might get away with two, you know, one layer, one on the bottom and one on the top, rather than the three. It's entirely up to you. I mean, they're probably going to wilt away into nothingness. They shouldn't, but they could. All right, they're all in anyway, so that's fine. All right, now all we do is we repeat the layers, the final lot of the mozzarella, the last of the sauce, I've sort of gone a bit heavier on the sauce for the top. I don't know why, but sort of sometimes when you've got to deal with trying to find half, it doesn't always go the way you want it to go. Okay, now with the last of the Parmesan, you are adding the breadcrumbs. And put that over the top. So you do want really more Parmesan to the top. And then the butter is just going to go over the top, and we are going to cook for 25 minutes or until the top is all golden. So with your butter, you measured it out in a tablespoon. You sort of would have been cutting at it as you went. That's how I did it anyway. So we're basically just going to do the same thing. So you dot it. All right, I'll see you in 25. And there we have it. Eggplants, aka aubergines, with mozzarella and Parmesan. Looks great, looks delicious. I won't be having any until my lunchtime tomorrow, so I can't wait for this one. I will catch you on the next adventure.